Yeah, that's the whole thing. Can you believe that, man?
Wow.
Look at that.
Incredible.
You're part of that. What year?
That was 1994.
1994. You came and worked as a security officer with me. What happened, man?
I really enjoyed working for you, and the reason being it was that you were like one of my idols because you were doing the job that I wanted to do. My dream was to be an LA County Sheriff Deputy growing up. That's the only place I wanted to work. And to be able to work security and actually work for my boss, who was an actual LA County Sheriff Deputy, that was just incredible. I thought it was just so cool.
Well, I enjoyed having you, and it was such a new beginning for me, jumping from sheriff uniform to a security uniform. You know that.
Yeah.
You know that now because
Absolutely.
we're going to talk about your career. But I think we had some fun, didn't we?
Oh, yeah, we did. I got to do a little bit more than what a regular security guard would do. We were chasing some bad guys and doing some good work in the community, and I really enjoyed the amount of time that we had together, and I learned so much from you. Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I think like anybody, when you get in the industry, you really don't know what to do, but I found out that sure was able to do a lot more as a civilian.
Absolutely.
Right. But the properties we picked, or the properties that I was contracted with, were problem properties.
Yes.
Remember the 706 Hustlers?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah, it was a gang out of Bellflower, those kids.
Yeah, they kept us pretty busy. And the apartment complex that we were, I believe it was in Bellflower, that we were doing security for, working there, and they had pretty much taken over that apartment complex. So when we came in, working together, we were able to move them out of there.
Yeah. God, I think you were with me on that one. I think we were walking around the corner, and I grabbed this kid, and in his back pocket, he had a 380. And we grabbed him, and I said, "Where are you going?" He goes, "I'm fitting to take over the property management company." I think we both looked at each other, and we said, "What?" So I did pat him down, and we found a 380. Bad part, I think I hung that on his neck, right? Yeah, unloaded it, hung on his neck, and we walked him through the handcuff through the property.
Yeah.
You remember his pants fell down. We kept him going.
Absolutely.
Now he had underwear on, but he was proud about it. He didn't care.
Yeah.
But we waltzed him right out of the property there, and we ended up getting a lot of contracts. And I don't want people to take this wrong. We're going way back. Yeah. What year?
That was 94.
Yeah, it was 94. It was a
different time.
Yeah, I definitely would be doing that now. Yeah, we all grow up. And I'm glad we did it safe.
Yes.
We did it safe. And look at you, man.
Yeah.
Look at you.
Long ways.
A long way. So live in Temecula. You got family. Let's go back. Let's do this. God, 94. Man, I really feel old right now, Kendrick.
I'm right there with you.
I feel really old. How old are you now?
52.
52. Okay. So let's do this. From you as security officer, instead of going all the way back where you were raised, I know about you now, but let's go from what happened when you left me.
So after I left you, I bounced around different security companies. Back then, it was a lot of these companies were fly-by-night. They were in business 1 week, and then the next week they were out of business, or security guards at that time would go from company to company just to get an extra $1 an hour. So there wasn't a lot of commitment and retention because it was just the nature of the beast at that time. So I bounced around from different security companies until 1996, and that's when I joined the Marine Corps.
Great move.
Yeah.
How'd you like the Marine Corps?
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. Had I not had such a desire to be a law enforcement officer, I would have made a career out of being in the Marine Corps. I enjoyed my time in there, got to see a lot of cool stuff. I learned so much about leadership. I was able to get some stability for my family. I matured a lot. Really enjoyed my time.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Anybody ever goes in the military, I almost think it should be a requirement now, especially today, huh?
Absolutely. I learned so much about just being responsible. And like I said, the leadership part of it. And all the while, I got to serve my country. How better is that? Got to go all over the world, serving our country, both domestically and abroad. And it was just an incredible time. And I came out of there a much better man than I was going in.
You get married when you were in there, or you married when you get out?
I was married before I actually went in.
Oh,
yeah.
Good.
And then, unfortunately, down the road, we got a divorce, but remarried, and me and my current wife have been together for quite some time now, 23 years.
Great story.
Yeah.
Great story. Okay, so Marine Corps 2.
So Marine Corps, I spent 4 years there and got out in 2000. And when I got out in 2000, I actually started I went back into security for just a little bit,
Okay.
for probably about a year. And it was pretty cool. I was working for a company down in the San Diego area, Rancho Santa Fe Protective Services.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And at the time, they had a custody transport contract. So they provided custody transport for the Oceanside Police Department. So our responsibility was, once Oceanside PD would arrest somebody and bring them back to the station, complete all the booking work, we'd show up, take the prisoner, and go book them into the county jail. Or if they're needed to go to the hospital, be fit for booking, we would take them there to get them all cleared. We did juvenile hall runs, everything. And it was a service that helped the police officers to get back out on the street much faster. So instead of them spending 2-3 hours booking a prisoner, they could actually just bring them to the station, drop them off, and then we would take them from there.
Oh, fantastic. That was a good job.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed it. Got to work alongside Oceanside police officers. And then at the time, I was actually processing with LAPD. I had put in an application with them, and I was in the process for that. But while working there doing the custody transport, a lot of the Oceanside PD officers, they took a liking to me, and they said, "Hey, why you want to go work for LAPD? You can work here." And they convinced me to apply, and I applied and got hired.
No, isn't it funny how it changes?
Yeah.
Any regrets on that at all? Do you feel you wish you would have gone to LAPD maybe for a couple of years and came over? Or you just like you went direct?
Absolutely not. Things happen for a reason, and I think God had a plan for me, and it showed in my career. That was the place for me. I grew up in Long Beach, so I always wanted to come back to LA County. I wanted to first, like I said, I wanted to be a LA County Sheriff Deputy. It didn't work out, but I said, if I don't go to LA County Sheriff's Department, it would either be Long Beach PD or LAPD. But God had like I said, he had a plan for me. Oceanside PD was the place, and it worked out for me.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, because during that time, as to go into the LA County or LAPD, Long Beach attended our academy at the time. So they bring the recruits to the Sheriff's Academy. So I had a good background. So you could leave and go to smaller departments versus you take a risk if you don't really know the department very well going over there. If you don't like it, you're stuck. And to promote, it's a lot harder versus a bigger department. So reputation in a smaller department, but you found your way.
Yeah. In my time at Oceanside PD, I think it was the perfect timing, because coming out of the Marine Corps, I was based right there at Camp Pendleton, so I was familiar with the Oceanside community, because that's the community right outside of Camp Pendleton. So it was an easy transition for me. And I would say the majority of the department was prior military, a lot of them former Marines, so it worked out very easy for me.
Yeah, it totally makes sense, right? Being right down. It's a good group of guys, huh?
Yes, absolutely. Men and women, just a great department. And, me starting off there and the way my career took off, it was just perfect timing for everything. So I got in there. I started in 2001, started working first in patrol. I did that for 3 years. And then in 2004, I got my first assignment, my special assignment. I got a K-9. So I became a K-9 officer in 2004, which to this day was hands down the best job I had in that department. Loved it.
I never hear anybody say otherwise when it comes to the dog.
Yeah, if we hadn't had we had an 8-year cap on specialized positions at the time. So the chief at that time said 8 years, and then after that, you got to move on to something else. So I did my 8 years, but had I been able to stay there and grandfather in and be able to stay there my entire career, I would have retired a K-9 handler. That's how much I loved it. But it was a great experience. And then after doing that for 8 years, from 2004 to 2012, I got selected to be a detective. So I started off as a property crimes detective, did that for about a year or so, and then they moved me over to our crimes of violence unit, which is homicide investigations and robberies. So I went over there for a couple years until I promoted in 2015 to sergeant. As a sergeant, I went back to patrol, worked patrol for a little bit. Also went and had a specialized position where I worked in our neighborhood policing team, sergeant. I was an SRO sergeant in our traffic. After that, 2018, I promoted to lieutenant. Spent some time, obviously, in patrol as a watch commander. Went back and did a specialized position in our community service division. And then promoted to captain in 2022, where I oversaw our patrol division and also investigations, SWAT team, and some other assignments. And then in 2023, got selected as the 20th Chief of Police for the Oceanside Police Department. So
That
it
is
was outstanding. Yeah.
unbelievable. That is a fantastic story. You did well, my friend.
Yeah.
Look at that from ARC Security. Who would have known? Who would have known?
Yeah.
And you did that in what time frame with the chief of police? Was that 20-something years?
So my total time on the police department was 24 years.
Okay.
And I was the chief there for about 1 year and 8 months. I had to leave a little early. My wife she had got diagnosed with breast cancer. So that and some other things that I had going on, I had to pull out a little earlier than I wanted to. But she's stable now. She's doing great. We're still trying to get to that 5-year remission mark, but she's doing much, much better now.
Yeah, they got some great medicine now. They're doing some great things. My mom had breast cancer, so I'm totally familiar with all that stuff. But sorry to hear that, but I'm glad she's on the recovery.
Yes.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
That's very good. And I'm glad you were able to step down and do what you needed to do, too. Because sometimes this career it's difficult.
Yeah.
Especially when you're the chief. That's why you had to step down. You're pretty busy.
Absolutely. It was definitely a different side of policing.
Yeah. Did you like that?
You know what? It was different. I was a street cop, and like I said, working as a K-9 handler and getting out there and getting dirty in the streets. It was different when I'm promoting and becoming a manager, even as a lieutenant, because everything was more administrative, sitting behind a desk, pushing paper, doing a lot of stuff with city council and different entities out in the community. It was just different. I enjoyed it. However, I enjoyed being a street cop more than I did being an administrator, being a manager.
Yeah, it's a whole different role,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah, I missed the streets. I missed going out there and getting the bad guys and putting them in jail. However, it helped me grow professionally. I learned so much more about not only the department, the inner workings of the department, but also with the community, how the community and the police department working together collaboratively makes the community safer. And also, obviously, you're learning about the politics of the city and the council and the mayor and all that kind of stuff. As far as growing professionally, it helped, but I definitely miss being on the streets.
Yeah, they don't put you in that position unless you know what you're doing. In fact, all that street time really made you extremely valuable. Everybody that sees this right now is going to ask you about the canine stuff.
Yeah.
They just love it. Okay, so you got to give us. Let me go back just for a second. What academy do they send you through when you go through Oceanside? Do they have their own, or do they send you to San Diego? Where do you go?
For San Diego, it's pretty unique, and I actually like it, and I would suggest it to other counties. So we have a regionalized academy. So all the agencies in San Diego County, we all go to the same academy, and that's at Miramar College. So whether it's San Diego PD, San Diego County Sheriff's Department, it doesn't matter. San Diego County agencies, we all go to the same academy. What's helpful about that is when we graduate from the academy, because there's a lot of times we're chasing people over different city borders, our training and our tactics are in line with each other. We have an understanding using the same radio codes. When we do a hot stop, a felony stop, we already know what to do, where everybody's supposed to be at, because we have that regionalized training. And it just makes it so much easier when we have to work across, like I said, those city lines.
That's a great point. I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah, and even when you have laterals, like if a lateral leaves San Diego PD and they come to Oceanside PD, it's not, hey, I'm in this whole new world. It's very familiar because most of the stuff that they do, we do in Oceanside. Now, some things are very unique to the individual agencies. In Oceanside, we may do some things a little different, maybe report writing. We put a report together one way, they may do it differently. But for the most part, we're pretty in line with how we approach things.
Yeah. Curious, what was the biggest problem with Oceanside? What did you have your good neighborhood, bad neighborhood, like everybody?
Yeah.
But what was in your bad neighborhoods? Was it gang, drug? What was it primarily?
So when I started in 2001, we had a huge gang problem. So we had a lot of gangs that were coming down from up north from the LA County area, coming down into San Diego County. And Oceanside, which was so unique about Oceanside, is we were the gateway into San Diego County. So we're the first city when you go into San Diego, coming south on the 5. So a lot of the riffraff that was coming from the LA County area, they make their pit stop in Oceanside. So we had a lot of gangs. We had the Crips and the Bloods and all the other types of gangs. We had a lot of prostitution.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, downtown Oceanside, Coast Highway, back in the day, prostitutes up and down Coast Highway. And I think a lot of it had to do with the military base They probably figured that the Marines were easy targets to
Sure.
try to have prostitutes go after. They get paid on the 1st and 15th. You see all the prostitutes out there on their paydays. But yeah, we had a lot of stuff going on in Oceanside back in there. We were actually able to clean it up. We had a chief that came from Long Beach PD, Frank McCoy, and what he brought with him that we did not have was a gang suppression unit. So having a full-time unit whose focus was to suppress gang activity, and that was back in the day when we had the gang injunctions, it was able to suppress a lot of the gang crimes, and we were able to put a lot of bad guys in jail. But yeah, we had some problems back in the day.
How big was your department?
When I left, we had approximately 226 sworn with about 115 professional staff.
No kidding. I
Yeah.
didn't think it was that big.
Yeah. Pretty medium-sized agency.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good size, though. I was thinking, okay. And then on the canine side, did you take that dog with you home? I'm sure you have your own car. Was that?
Yes.
That was all.
Yeah, so for 8 years, I actually worked 4 different dogs, but the dogs came home with me, went to work with me. I would tell people I spend more time with that dog than I probably do with my own family, sadly, because they're at home, you got to care for them, and then when you go to work every day, they're with you for 12 hours. And some of the craziest pursuits and biggest fights and shootings and whatnot, my dog was always there by my side, and I knew I could always count on my dog.
Okay.
Yeah.
You brought up a really good point. We love our animals, no question. But being around your dog as a partner, as a pet, as a family dog, training, all that, that's a whole different. Take me back with an animal like that. You have to be careful of the family, right? Because it can't be necessarily a family pet. Did you have to keep them outside? Did you have to divide them? You heard that from the other gentleman that was here before.
Yeah, and
How'd you run that?
it's striking that balance, understanding that the dog is a tool. You do get attached to him, that's your partner. Like I said, I've been in some crazy knockdown battles, and my dog has been right there by my side. But we also have to understand that the dog is a tool. But when at home, some dogs are social enough to where they can be around your family members. So if it's a Saturday and you want to pop the kennel door open and the dog comes out and the kids play with them, and they can be that like pet, but you can't do too much of that because you don't want the dog to lose their edge. But then the dog being able to jump in that car and knowing, hey, it's time to go to work, I need to turn it on. Some dogs were able to do that. I had one dog that was like that. He was a great social dog. I could take him to canine demos and kids could pet him and all that good stuff. But when we went 10-8 out there in the streets, he knew it was time to work. But then I had another dog, actually 2 more dogs. They were all business. They were just big game hunters. They didn't want to play, didn't want to be touched. I couldn't really do community type stuff with them. They were just all about business. Great dogs.
What's your favorite dog, Shepherd or Malinois? What's your?
I like the Malinois. They're more athletic and agile. You can do a lot more with them. They're great with the obedience, and that's the key to being a good canine handler, is how you control your dog. You can get any person to put a mean dog on the end of the leash and tell them to bite somebody. That's not hard. But the art of a true handler is the control, that the dog does what you want it to do when you want it to do it. The Malinois were easier to train, more obedient, more push button, whereas the Shepherds, they didn't have the obedience part as well as the Malinois did.
Wow. Yeah, I heard like the Mals were. I seen it like on a video once. So here's the difference between a Mal and a Shepherd. A Shepherd goes around the chairs, Mal goes right through them, goes over the top.
Yeah, and the Shepherds were really good at tracking. We actually had a couple of Shepherds, other handlers, because we had a total. Actually, when I started, we had 5 canine handlers.
Oh, okay. You had
Yeah.
5. Okay.
5, and one of our handlers had a Shepherd, and the Shepherds are really good at tracking. That's where they separate themselves from the Malinois, is their tracking ability, especially when you got a cold trail or you had a suspect jump out of a car and he's been on the run for 45 minutes and you bring that dog there and you start that trail from that point. The Shepherds are a little better at that because they're a little more methodical when it comes to searching. The Malinois is a little bit more spaz. If I'm in a pursuit and suspect foot bails and he's running and I pop that door, that Mal is going to run him down. They both have their pros and cons, but if I had to choose one, it would be the Malinois.
Yeah, I remember I was on a call one time and was a pursuit that ended, and the guy went into a backyard. We didn't know it at the time, but he went into the backyard. So we go in the backyard, super tall grass. And it's a shepherd.
Yeah.
That shepherd's he turns him loose. He speaks the language, turns him loose, and this dog finds his way through this tall grass. We couldn't even see him anymore. We just see the grass moving, and all of a sudden he goes underneath this pigeon cage, and this guy dug underneath the pigeon cage, or there was a hole under this small pigeon cage, and this dog went right in, started biting. Of course, you hear the screams, right? And the handler's trying to tell him, hey, quick kicking, quick fighting. And then he pulls this dog off, and this dog comes out, and he coughs up a purple pair of pants and a little bit of meat. and then he calls him, and he sits back and wagging his tail. Okay. It was actually pretty funny. I know it sounds horrible, but.
That's why we tell him not to run. I got to a point probably when I was a senior handler, close to my 8-year mark. I had a lot of apprehensions, dog bites, but a lot of them where people gave up. And I prided myself in getting somebody to surrender. It wasn't about how many dog bites you had. But I got to a point where I would almost like I was pleading with these suspects because I already knew what the outcome was going to be.
Sure.
You know, if my dog gets a hold of you, you're going to the hospital. And I don't want to do that. I'd rather for you to just surrender peacefully. But yeah, I would talk to the guys like, hey, I know you're down there. We see you. I'm going to send my dog in there. He's going to bite you. It's not going to turn out like you think. But some people would surrender. But then you always had the one who just thought, no way this dog is going to find me. And the dog would find him.
Yeah, that was our case. They did the helicopters. They did the announcement. They killed it on the announcement. Trying, hey, he's going to get a bite. Yeah. And sure enough, they just think they're hidden. And those dogs are pretty amazing.
Yeah, and they keep the officers safe because if you think about it, those are situations that you would have to send an officer into. Yeah. So if you're chasing some murder suspect who decides he wants to run down in the canyon and hide, if the officers go down there with flashlights, there's a good chance they might get shot or involved in an OIS, whereas you can send that dog down there. And even if he doesn't bite him, he can alert and let you know exactly where he's at. You know? I never really got to get involved in that, and everybody that's involved absolutely loved it. What's the training process on that with the dog? Did the dog come trained, or do you attend the training with the dog? Yeah, so there's a couple ways we get them. Sometimes you'll get a handler who retires or moves on to another position. Their dog is already 10-8 trained, and the dog just comes over to the new handler, and you just really have to get the handler up to speed with the dog. But then sometimes, like in my case, 3 of my dogs were green dogs. They were brand new, never been on the street. They come with some basic training, basic obedience training, some basic bite work. A lot of our dogs were dogs that were former Schitzen dogs who had some man work training, but probably fell out of the program. So they come green, and then we do an actual 8-week academy with our dogs. So every day, 5 days a week, it's me, my dog, our department trainer, and then we also train with other agencies. So it'll be Carlsbad PD there with their dogs and National City PD, and it's an 8-week training academy. Yeah.
Wow. The dogs themselves, especially when they're doing the search, I was always curious. I know we bring it by the car, and the dog would smell around and then boom, take off or whatever. But what's the ability that they have? Especially if you don't have that, you pull up to a scene and the guy takes off. What's that dog actually tracking outside of scent? Maybe I'm saying this wrong. Help me with that if you could. What's it? The dog just picking up in the scent, or
some of it is just visual eyesight. So we do a lot of training where we identify a suspect, and there's keywords and things that we say to our dog that was preparatory commands where they know what's coming next. So if I say, hey, suspect, don't run, I'm going to send my dog, you better not run. My dog is picking up on all those cues. And then I have to make sure that my dog has a visual on who the bad guy is. So once I know my dog's got radar lock, those ears go up and the dog gets stiff and his chest pokes out, I know he's got a lock on the suspect.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have to, as a handler, you have to watch your dog, because if a dog comes out of the car and he's all spazzed out and he doesn't have radar lock, but there may be other people in the area, innocent people, you send your dog and then somebody gets bit that you didn't intend to send your dog on, that could be a problem. So you have to make sure that the dog is locked on. So part of it is visual, part of it is sound. They pick up sound if suspects running through the bushes. They may just hear brush crackling and breaking. But probably the biggest part is scent. We don't realize we actually drop and leave a lot of odor from our bodies that the dogs are able to pick up. Their sense of smell is 1,000 times greater than ours. Their sense of smell, I describe it. If you had a hamburger, right, there's all parts of the hamburger. You got the bun, you got the patty, you got the cheese and the lettuce and all the stuff on there, the ketchup. The dog is able to smell the different parts of that hamburger. Where we just smell the hamburger as a whole, the dog can say, I can smell the lettuce, I can smell the cheese in there. But that's just how great their smell is.
Vision InSites is the simplest, most powerful security guard management software. No long training, no complicated systems. Guards can start reporting in minutes. Train your teams with micro trainings, attaching video to individual checkpoints to walk them through sensitive procedures. Submit accurate reports every time with dynamic observations that automatically rewrite, categorize, and prioritize, removing human error. And grow your business with daily, monthly, and quarterly insights, the most advanced reports available today. Vision InSites, the simplest, most powerful way to report.
A lot of people are going to love this, right?
Yeah.
Because they just love to hear stories like this. All right. Give them a good story.
Yeah.
What's your best bite, or whatever you can say? What's your best bite? What's your best story? Something really exciting that really worked out cool with your dog, where you got back in the car and you guys pawed a fist or whatever.
Yeah. It was actually pretty cool. I was a brand new handler, so I was out there with my dog and I was ready to do some good work. And when you're a canine handler, you're attached to your patrol team. So your patrol team is looking up to you like, hey, if we get one of these big cases or pursuit or we're looking for somebody, we're going to be calling you. In our department, the canine handler didn't have to work a beat. So we were free really to just go and do the critical incident type calls. So we had a call one night. We had officers, they were in a pursuit of assault with a deadly weapon suspect, 245 suspect. And they're chasing this guy all over Oceanside. And I get there, get in the pursuit. Suspect actually rammed one of our officers' cars. Another officer got out of the car trying to get away from him because he was hitting police cars. A suspect actually tried to run him over. And then there was an officer-involved shooting. So they fired at the suspect in the vehicle. Didn't hit him, but he took off. So now we got this big mess. We got cars crash. We got a shooting that just occurred, and we're still chasing this guy. And then he crashes on a corner. He foot bails. Nobody can find him. I get my dog out, and then I'm able to do a track from the car, located the suspect a short distance away, and we were able to take him into custody. But it just made me feel really good because in that time, this was a really big deal. Like I said, we had a shooting pursuit, a lot of property damage. The world was coming. We were actually calling for mutual aid because we were getting close to the Vista border. And then the suspect takes off and nobody can find him. I was able to come there with my dog and we were able to track him down and get him into custody. That was one of my very first apprehensions, and it just stood with me for my whole time as a canine handler.
Oh, yeah. When you got your brothers out there and they're getting hit, there's nothing better. Like, you can't let that guy go.
Absolutely.
He can't even, you don't want him talking shit.
Yeah.
You can't let that go. That's awesome. Did you speak a different language with your dog?
So my dog, he responded to French commands.
French.
Yeah. So I wasn't fluent at French, but some of the commands that I would give him were French. And the commands that, if it was something new that he didn't know and I taught him that, then I would just use English commands.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had a dog that I spoke French to, but then when we converted him into not only a man work dog, but he was also a narcotics detection dog. So all the commands that I taught him for the narcotics detection were all in English.
How cool.
Great job. Now you see why I said if I could have stayed in for my entire career, I would have. It was the greatest job in the world. Loved it.
Did you have your own little release button on the door?
Yeah, kept it on.
Was it window or door?
Door. Yeah, in the old days, long before I became a cop, the handlers used to roll the back window down. They had a button and the back window would drop, dog would jump out of the window. But when I became a canine handler, we had a remote that we kept on our belt, push the button and that back door pops open. And a ball of fur comes out that back seat, ready to go. Fur missile.
That's such a great feeling, man. That's got to be an awesome feeling. I've seen some film now, and I've seen it live when I was there, but it's just nothing better to watch that dog come out of the car, especially when you got somebody there who's just out of control, and you go, okay.
Yeah.
That dog comes out, and he's just waiting, like you said, locked on. That was really interesting the way you said that, too. That is such a good point, being one of the one of the importance of really being a canine handler, somebody in control with patrol experience, people experience, animal experience. There's a lot involved in that because, like you said, you got a fur missile. That's a lot of liability that the county and or city is going to have to write checks for if you don't have yourself together as a human. You're not balanced. And like I said, your presence alone, shame on them.
Yeah.
Okay. Second, the animal comes out and you're being kind enough. Because let's be honest, back in the day, everybody would love to say, hey, I want the dog to get a bite.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You can't have that mentality.
No.
So you got to use it as a good tool. Plus, you're actually teaching the animal the wrong way, too. Because every time he comes out, he thinks he's going to get a bite. There's got to be a fine line.
Yeah.
And so that's, I imagine, is pretty well, your dog's pretty well disciplined, something you have to stay on all the time with him. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been around other handlers who had dogs that were just out of control. They're getting accidental bites and dogs doing all kind of stuff, and departments getting sued, handlers getting kicked out of the units because their dogs there's just no control. Dog is doing what he wants to do when he wants to do it, and that's just not good dog handling.
Yeah. So when a dog does get a bite, how long does it take that animal to key down? Is it based on your response, or is there just a natural time that you say, hey, I got to put him in the car and just give him 5 or 10 minutes?
Yeah, so once my dog would go in and get the bite, and mind you, we train every week. We have a training with our trainer. We do a 4-hour training every week. But you also train throughout the week during your shift. So when you got some downtime, you might call one of your beat partners up and say, hey, you want to take a bite for me? Throw them the sleeve, have them go hide. I send my dog out to search and find them and get some training. So in an actual bite, when the dog gets on that bite, and we take the dog off the bite or call him off or whatever, get the suspect into custody, the dog is going to be riled up, just like anybody who would be in a fight. Adrenaline's pumping, dog is foaming at the mouth, and he's raring, ready to go, ready to get back in the fight if necessary. What I would do after praising my dog, tell him, hey, good boy, got the bad guy, I would put my dog in the back seat, just let him go back there and chill out, relax. Because they get wired up. As soon as they see those lights come on or the sirens, they know what's going on. They know it's time to take care of business. But I would put my dog away and let them calm down after bites.
Yeah, so when you're training them and somebody's taking a bite, by the way, did you have a rough time finding people to take a bite?
You know what? There were officers who wanted to be a handler. So I told them, hey, you got to cut your teeth like all the handlers did. We would go out to training, volunteer our time, go out there, let the dogs chew on us. We put the bite suits on and let them find us. So we would spend that whole 4 hours of training with the K-9 team. We weren't getting paid, so it was volunteer time. And that's how you earned your stripes and your opportunity. So if I knew somebody on the patrol wanted to be a K-9 handler, I would say, hey, you want to take some bites? You want to get chewed up for a little bit? And they would always volunteer. But it wasn't just they volunteered to take bites. It helped them understand the psychology of canines, how canines operate, how they search and find suspects, how they bite. That's really important too, making sure that the dog stays on the bite and not what we call typewritering, when the dog is just biting all over the place. We want them to bite and hold. So the agitator is the person that we call who takes the bite. They learn how to train dogs and keep them on the bite.
So this is really interesting. So I got to thank you for doing this. We're going to proceed with the further stuff. But yeah, like I said, I never saw a canine handler that wasn't a good cop. He was very well respected. It's a respected position because you could use that tool in a wrong way. And you're going to get found out pretty quick if your dog is constantly biting, right? You're not surrendering when you're supposed to surrendering based on lawsuits, because that's a big lawsuit. That's going to be the first one. That whether it's right or not, they're going to file a lawsuit. No,
that's the first thing they attack is the control, and was a handler using the dog appropriately. But to your point about good cops being handlers, you got to be a good cop. That was our prerequisite at Oceanside PD, is that you had to prove yourself on the street, being a good, competent, proactive police officer.
Yep.
Before we would even consider you to be a canine handler.
Yeah, that's what they call a good people cop.
Yeah.
Can walk people to jail.
Yeah, absolutely.
Walk people to jail. They're somebody that's really good at the chain of escalation, following those steps. And I enjoyed myself talking to people. And I know you, I'm no doubt you're the same way. That was my thrill, was be able to talk people down, not just abusing the color of authority.
Yeah.
So it's a big factor. So that's really cool. God, I'm really interested in this, man. Man, I wish I would have been a canine guy. But that was a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
It was a hard position to get into.
Absolutely. It was very competitive.
Yeah.
There was a lot of guys and gals who want that position, and they trained and did everything that you did and more. So when it was time for selection and you got selected, that you were someone special, because we didn't just give that position out to anybody.
Yeah.
You had to really earn it and prove yourself.
Okay, before we move on, I got to ask you this one. Mm-hmm. I don't know, it'd be pretty hard for me to take a bite. What's that like?
You know, when you have the sleeve on, you can still feel the pressure. You're obviously not feeling the teeth cutting through your skin, but you feel the pressure. And the bite force from a Malinois or Shepherd is pretty doggone impressive. It's hard. So it's kind of like your arm being in a vise where something is clamping down on it. Now, we did have some slip-ups where the dog would find a way underneath the sleeve, and we've had some handlers and agitators who got accidentally bit. And I can tell you, being one of those who got bit, I got bit on the hand, and it's not fun. You don't want to get bit by a dog.
Wow.
But it did teach me to have more respect and understanding of what the suspect is going through. Again, it just caused me to be judicial about using my dog.
Yeah, it's an amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Really are. The power, man. That's awesome. That is just incredible. There you go, guys. That's probably the best story I've ever had as far as canine. You probably learned a lot, and for those of you that want to be. So let's do this. For those that maybe some police officers watching, if they want to become a canine handler, what would be the best way to do that? You talked about it a little bit, but maybe you got some advice for them. And I know smaller departments are different than bigger ones, and there's a process, but what's the grit? What would they have to have? Minimum.
Yeah. So for our department, we had a minimum of 3 years. So you had to have at least 3 years on as a police officer before you could even put in for the position. I got that position right at 3 years. But I had to prove myself in the field first as just being a competent police officer, because that's your primary job. Because there are going to be times, even as a canine handler, especially when you're short-staffed, you might have to go take a beat and be able to take paper and investigate crimes and do what a regular beat officer does. You might have to write a search warrant. There's many times where my dog was in the back seat, but I was doing investigative work. So you need to be a sound police officer before you even consider being a canine handler. And that way, when you do get your dog and you're out there doing the canine work, that's a part of it, right? But also that you can do the police work that you were originally hired for. So I would say focus on, don't worry about, and that's any specialized position. I hear people say, I want to be a detective. I want to be on the SWAT team. And they haven't even gone to academy yet. And I tell them, hey, calm down, pump your brakes, get through the academy, get out there in the field, prove yourself, learn the job. And then after you learn the job and you got a good understanding, you're never going to know everything. But you do get to a point where you go, you know what, I'm pretty comfortable. There's a lot I know. And if I don't know how to do it, I know where to go to get my answers. Once you get there, then you can start looking at those specialized positions.
Okay. And for those who are in the security industry right now that want to be peace officers, all right, because times have changed, okay? Tell them for me. You want to be a police officer, bare minimum, what's the best skill you think that person can have? And I know I'm just throwing this out. There's a lot of different skills, but what is the very basic skill? People skills, talking, what is that?
You hit it right on the head. Your ability to talk to people, your ability to communicate. And I tell people having those interpersonal skills, just being human. I used to always tell my officers there can be humanity in law enforcement. Just because you're a police officer doesn't mean that you have to turn into this robot or this different person. I got better response and cooperation from people when I treated them with respect and dignity. Old school was first time you ask them, second time you tell them, third time you make them. And that's the way I was brought up. We didn't take any mess when we rolled up and did stuff. And a lot of that would wind up turning into fights because I had my script. And if they didn't do exactly what I wanted them to do quick enough, it was hands-on. And that got me into a lot of fights. And as I got older and wiser and spent more time in law enforcement, I learned the people skill side of law enforcement. Learn how to talk to people and convince people to do what you want them to do. They used to call it verbal judo. It's essentially being able to talk to people and convince them to cooperate without having to use force. And you'll be surprised that when you treat people with that respect and decency and treat them like a human, they're more likely to cooperate and respond to you in a positive way. So that would be my advice to anybody coming in, is hone your people skills and have some humanity. Yeah.
Great advice. That was my world. I loved teaching tactical communication. It was verbal judo at the time, but the big part is culture, diversity too, right? And then the different nationalities, when you went to a gang environment, a lot different. Hispanic gang, traditional Hispanic gangs versus black street gangs versus Asian street gangs, right? Everything is different. Samoan, right? Gangs, all that matters. And who your approach, your conversation, or it goes downhill real quick.
Yeah, and one of the challenging things about law enforcement is you're policing a very diverse community. And I know that's a hot button topic now. People hear diversity and all kind of feelings pop up. But you have to understand, regardless of your background, that when you go into a community, you are policing people from all walks of life, all different backgrounds, all different religious beliefs, those who have different views about law enforcement. And if you go in there with this one way of thinking and thinking that you're going to convert this community to do it the way that you want, you're sadly mistaken. So you have to be diversified in your train of thought and how you approach people and how you talk to people. You may go to that, for example, in Oceanside, we had the second largest Samoan population outside of Samoa. It was Oceanside and Carson, and which you're familiar with when you worked there, very large Samoan population. So even though I didn't have a lot of background experience working with the Samoan community, I had to learn about their culture and who to talk to. And then when I would go to a house, in their culture, you speak to the man of the house, the elder. And I had to learn that. But it helped me understand that community better and better serve them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's awesome advice. And with kids today on their phones,
Yeah.
okay, help the security officers out there that are in this career. Tell them, I just want to get your thoughts. This is just throwing it at you.
Yeah.
The society's changing. Law enforcement's a hard job to fill, obviously because of things that are going on right now. It's why I don't want to go out there and get killed. Why I don't want to go out there and fight people. You can't even talk to anybody at a traffic stop that's going to argue and want to crawl out of the car. I don't know if I want to do that job. If you're a security officer today, there's a lot more demands. The client's expecting more from the security officer today. It's going from observe and report to I need you to act like a police officer. Any advice you could give these kids that want to be security officers that are in the current position as a security officer and they're getting approached to do police type work? How can they keep themselves safe, or what should they do? What's your thought on that? Because you're opening a security company now.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we're going to get into that, but you're opening one up. So what's that look like now for you?
Yeah, so security officers have to understand their role. They're not law enforcement. Even when I was doing security, even as much as I wanted to be a police officer, and I probably did some things I shouldn't have been doing as a security officer, understanding your role. Your number one, your role is to prevent crime. I know we say observe and report, but they got you there to prevent crime as well. So when you try to prevent, if that doesn't work, then you go into your observe and report. That's just the basics of what you should be doing as a security officer. But what I would like to see security officers do, and something I'm trying to bring into my company and my officers, is learning how to work with the community to solve the issues that they're dealing with. Understanding that as a security officer, I don't care how much training you have or you got your gun permit and your taser and all that stuff, if you go into an apartment complex or whatever HOA community that you're doing security for, a lot of times the problems that they have there, whether it's gangs or homelessness, they had that before you came there and it wasn't solved. You're just the next company coming in trying to fix that problem. So be more solution-based, where when you have these problems at accounts that you're doing security for, try to think outside the box. Look at the community around you to try to help you with that. So for example, if I'm doing security at an apartment complex and it's an infested with gang activity and I'm there doing what I need to do, I'm going to try to partner with the local law enforcement. I'm going to try to partner with the local groups, maybe gang prevention groups or something like that, who can come in and work with me to solve that issue. And that's what we had to do in law enforcement. We tried to arrest our way to a safer community and it didn't work. We had to learn to partner with other entities to help us solve that problem. So my suggestion to any security guard who's doing a job, especially if they want to later become a police officer, is learn how to work in collaboration with people around you to help you solve those problems that you're dealing with.
Yeah, and training. As far as training, what kind of training do you think they should do? Number one.
Yeah, so training, I would say one of the biggest issues that I've always seen in security, even back when I was doing it, is just your ability to read, write, and comprehend. That's huge. When it comes to putting your thoughts on paper in a concise manner, and you're able to write a report that is free of grammatical errors and that somebody can read it and understand what happened, that's huge. So when it comes to reading and comprehension, just spelling and punctuation, that's huge. We even saw it in law enforcement. We'd hire these new cops and they could run really fast and they could shoot and do all these cool things. But then when it came down to writing a report, it was a mess. So I would say definitely focus on that.
Yeah, great advice. And now, your security company, give it a plug. You're going live here shortly.
Faithful Security Services. We just launched here actually in January of 2026. We started this journey back in August, and we were just getting our license and everything that we needed to do to get our company started. So we spent 5 months getting rolling, and now here in January, we just got started. So we just moved into our new office in Temecula, in Old Town Temecula. We're now hiring security officers. We purchased vehicles and all our equipment, and we're going to be partnering with you in Vision InSites as far as bringing some security management software to our clients. And the focus of our company is going to be, we're going to do the standing guards and mobile patrol stuff, but we want to do a little bit more than that. We want to be a one-stop shop for our client security needs. So we're going to be doing executive protection. We're going to be doing private investigations. We're going to be doing security assessments, training for companies if they want active shooter training or de-escalation training. We're going to be providing that as well. Event security also. So again, we just want to be a one-stop shop for security needs, but we also want to be a company that thinks outside the box. We want to be solution-based. So when we have a client that reaches out to us and say, hey, this is my property, these are the issues that we are dealing with, we don't want to just be the next company that slides in there and tries to figure it out. We actually want to go in there and solve those problems. And we think with that, word of mouth will get around about our company, and then we'll grow.
Yeah, I think that's a terrific approach. I think that's what's needed today. That's where it's going. You know that.
Yep.
You just came fresh out as retired chief. And by the way, I've got a really terrific couple guys you need to talk to, Scott Walker and Dave Weiner. They've got a really phenomenal tool, especially for the shoot and don't shoot class you're doing. I think Dave's from Secure Measures. I got to introduce you to them. They were here in the last podcast. It's something you could definitely use.
Yes.
Yeah, really cool guys.
You guys can check us out at faithfulsecurityservicesusa.com.
Okay, say it one more time for the group.
faithfulsecurityservicesusa.com. Check us out.
And the clients you're going? Multi, commercial, are you open?
We're open to a little bit of everything. We actually got some irons in the fire right now on some special events that we're going to be working here soon. But we're going to go after, the apartment complexes, the strip malls, the business parks, medical offices, all of those out there needing security needs. One of the big issues now, and we've always had theft and crime and vandalism, but the homeless issue is huge right now. And more security companies are getting involved in that. For example, when I was a chief at Oceanside PD, the city of Oceanside actually hired a company called Gatekeepers out of Hemet, California. They brought them into the city to deal with a lot of the homeless issues that the police officers didn't really have a lot of time to deal with. It was a lower priority call. We would get there, but it may be 5 hours before we show up. So now cities are hiring security companies to come in and try to move the homeless along and also connect them with resources. So they're acting more like an ambassador for the city.
Yeah.
So they bring them in. If that call comes out of, hey, I got the homeless guy with his shopping cart parked out in front of my business and he won't leave, they call the security folks in and they'll come there, try to talk to the person, try to connect them with services, try to get them to move along. That way the police officers don't have to be bogged down with that. So that'll be something as well that we'll be involved in.
Yeah, that's going to be a really good move right there. We got to stay in touch, of course.
Absolutely.
But, I'm still shocked, man. Still shocked. And you have boys on law enforcement too, don't you?
Yeah, my two oldest boys, they actually started out at Oceanside PD with me. My oldest boy, Justin Sadler, he was at OPD for probably about 3 years. And then he moved to Texas with his wife and daughter. He's now a police officer at Plano PD. So he's still a cop, doing great. He's working as a school resource officer right now. And he's hoping to get into an investigation spot here soon. And then my second oldest boy, Jordan Sadler, he also started at Oceanside PD, but he lived quite a ways away from Oceanside, so he wound up moving, lateraling over to Menifee PD.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a police officer there now, and now he works in the traffic services unit. He's a DUI investigator, and he's doing great. So both of my boys are doing outstanding. My wife is a retired San Diego County Sheriff's Lieutenant. She spent 20 years on the department. So we got a bunch of cops all through our family. So very proud of my boys. They're doing some really good work. And they're a part of our company as well. Yeah.
I'm proud of you. Look at you. Gosh, man, 1994, right?
1994 is
To
when it
now.
all started.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible. This is a great story, man. And I'm super proud to say that you worked for me.
Yeah. Had a good time. I learned a lot from you. Like I said, I looked up to you. And even though we were only got to work together for a short amount of time, I learned so much and it was just, I had a blast. Yeah.
So we're going to have you back because as you move forward with your company, by the way, we're going to get you some really cool marketing pieces, especially on the Vision side. I obviously have a huge background in security now.
Yeah.
So I want to share that with you. Look at that. Look at all those roles reversed, right? Look at that role reversal right now. And I am super proud of you, brother.
Yeah.
I really am.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for inviting me on to your podcast. And I love watching your podcast. I learned so much from all the other executives in the different security companies, just hearing about their experiences and what they've been through and just trying to glean in some of that from them. And hopefully it helped me in my career.
You're going to help a lot of guys today. Yeah. I mark my word, this is going to be a big podcast. It's a big part, especially with the handler. They just love those stories.
Yeah.
You know, I did. I went on. How long did I go on for this? I don't mean. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
It was very interesting. It really was. Really interesting to hear. But all right, my friend, we're going to definitely do this again. We're going to take some shots out there and put some nice B-roll together for you, and we're going to put this package real sweet so you can put it on your website. And then you and I are going to stay in touch because I'm going to help you. Get some contracts. You're going to do well on your own, but I'm just going to tell you what not to do. How about that, secret?
Yeah, I'll take all the advice I can.
Take the do not do this. Okay, I got a lot of those, so I think I can help you there. I think you're going to do extremely well.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Comment, like, share, and subscribe.